You just threw away dinner. Not yesterday's leftovers, not the soggy bread from the back of the pantry. I mean the actual living, breathing food that was sitting right there on your cutting board 10 minutes ago, and you swept it straight into the trash without a second thought. The bottom of your celery, the root end of your green onions, that sad little nub of ginger you only used half of, gone. Every single week, over and over again. And one of them, number 17 on this list, had me standing at my windowsill just staring. I genuinely didn't believe it until I saw it. We'll get there. Here's what nobody tells you at the grocery store. Those scraps you're tossing, most of them are still alive. They have root nodes, dormant buds, stored energy. Everything a plant needs to start growing again. And all they're asking for is a glass of water and a windowsill. I know, you've heard something like this before. Maybe you tried it once, stuck some green onion ends in a cup, nothing happened. Or it turned soft, and you decided this whole regrowing food thing was a myth for people with too much time on their hands. It's not a myth. You just made one of 3 very specific mistakes that kill almost every regrow attempt. And I'm going to tell you exactly what those are, because once you know them, this whole thing becomes almost embarrassingly easy. Today I'm walking you through 25 kitchen scraps you should never throw away again. Some of them will give you fresh food in 3 days. Some will grow into plants so beautiful you'll want to put them on your kitchen counter as decoration. And that number 17, last section, worth the wait. But first, let's talk about what you're actually losing. Picture a normal Tuesday evening. You're making dinner.
You grab a bunch of green onions from the fridge, slice off the green tops for your stir fry, and drop the white root ends into the trash. Takes about 2 seconds, doesn't even register as a decision. Now multiply that by 52 weeks. A bunch of green onions runs you $1.50, maybe 2. You buy one, use half, the rest wilts in the fridge by Thursday, and by Friday it's gone. That's roughly $1 lost every single week, just from green onions alone. Add your herbs, the parsley you bought for one recipe, the basil that turned black before you could use it, the cilantro that went limp in the drawer. Add the celery you bought for soup stock and used 3 stalks of. Add the ginger you grated 2 teaspoons of and then forgot about. One study put it at close to $2,000 a year, per household, just in food. That's a flight somewhere nice, gone, into the bin, every year. I'm not here to make you feel guilty about it. I did the exact same thing for years. But I want you to look at those scraps differently, because when you do, your grocery bill starts to look very different. Easy ones first, because if these don't convince you, nothing will. Green onions, spring onions, scallions, whatever you call them, this is where most people start, and for good reason. It's the fastest, most satisfying, most impossible to fail regrow you can do. Here's what you're not throwing away anymore. The bottom 1.5 inches of the bunch, the white part with the roots attached. When you cut your green onions, leave that much at the base, stick it in a glass with about 1/2 inch of water at the bottom, and put it somewhere with decent light. That's the whole instruction. In about 2 days, sometimes less in a warm kitchen, green tips start pushing up from the cut end. By day 5, you'll have usable green onion tops. You can snip them, use them, and the plant just keeps going. Same roots, same glass. Trim, regrow, trim again. One bunch of green onions, bought once, can give you 3 or 4 full harvests before it starts to slow down. One thing that matters more than people realise, the water level. You want the roots to be in the water, but you don't want the cut end sitting in water. Just the bottom of the roots, about 1/2 inch. If you submerge the whole white part, it gets waterlogged, starts to break down, and you end up with a soft mess instead of fresh green tops. Change the water every day or 2. That's it, you're done. Romaine lettuce and other leafy heads. This one surprises people who haven't tried it because it feels too simple. When you get a head of romaine, or butter lettuce, or little gem, and you pull off the outer leaves to use them, you're left with the dense core. Most people throw it away or compost it if they're being responsible. Stop doing that. Put the base of that lettuce core in a shallow dish with about 1 centimetre of water. Set it by a window. Within 3 to 5 days, new leaves will start pushing out from the centre of that stub. Pale green at first, getting darker as they grow. They'll never make you a full head of lettuce, let's be honest about what this is, but you'll get a steady supply of fresh inner leaves for salads, sandwiches, wraps. Soft, tender, genuinely delicious. The trick with lettuce is light. It needs more than you'd think. A north-facing windowsill in winter isn't going to cut it. If you don't have a bright window, try rotating it to wherever the sun hits best during the day. The darker your space, the longer it takes, and the less impressive the result. Celery. This might be my favourite one to show people, because the transformation is so visual and so fast that it looks almost theatrical. You buy a head of celery, you use the stalks for soup or snacking or whatever you need them for, and you're left with the base, that wide, dense, slightly concave bottom section that connects all the stalks together. Normally goes in the bin. Instead, put it in a shallow bowl, cut side up, with about ½ inch of water. Put it in a bright window. On day 3 or 4, you'll see something strange starting in the centre of the base. Tiny, tightly packed, bright yellow-green leaves pushing up from the middle. By day 7, those leaves are darker, taller, visibly growing. By day 10, you've got a small but entirely real celery plant growing from what was essentially trash. From there, you can keep it in water and harvest the tender inner leaves as they grow. They're excellent in salads, and they have a more intense celery flavour than the outer stalks. Or you can pot it up in soil and it'll keep growing into a fuller plant. The celery base responds to light more dramatically than almost anything else on this list. On a bright windowsill in summer, the growth is rapid and almost showy. In a dark corner, it'll be sluggish and pale. Don't waste a good regrow on a bad spot. Here's where I need to stop for a minute and talk about the 3 mistakes. Because I know some of you have tried this. You put something in a glass of water, checked it every day for a week, saw nothing, and eventually threw it out anyway. Or worse, you saw something starting to happen, and then it just stopped. Here's what actually went wrong. Mistake 1. Too much water. I keep saying this because it's the thing that kills more regrowing attempts than anything else. You think more water means more growth. It doesn't. It means rot. The cut surface of the plant needs air, not water. Submerge it completely and you're essentially slowly composting it in a glass on your windowsill. A thin layer of water, just enough to keep the roots or the base hydrated, is all you need. Mistake 2. Wrong light. Plants need light to photosynthesize. Shocking, I know. But the specific kind of light matters. Direct afternoon sun through a south-facing window in July can actually scorch tender new growth. What you want is bright, indirect light. A window that gets sun for part of the day, but not blazing midday rays directly on the new sprouts. You want bright, indirect light. A window with some sun during the day, but nothing blazing directly on the new growth. East or west-facing windows are often ideal. Mistake 3. Not changing the water. Still water, especially in a warm kitchen, becomes a nursery for bacteria and algae within 2 or 3 days. You don't need to be obsessive about it. Every day or every other day is fine. But if you put something in a glass of water and check on it a week later, don't be surprised by what you find. Refresh the water regularly, give the container a quick rinse, and your regrowing scraps will stay healthy and smell clean. Fix these 3 things and your success rate will go from frustrating to almost guaranteed. Fresh herbs: basil, mint, cilantro, parsley. This is where the economics get genuinely interesting. A small pot of fresh basil at the grocery store costs somewhere between $3 and $5. You use it, the plant gets a bit ragged, and eventually it either dies or goes woody and bitter. Most people don't realise that before they throw it out, they could have made themselves 3 more free basil plants. Here's how. Take a stem about 4 to 6 inches long, cutting just below a leaf node. Strip the leaves from the bottom half of the stem, leaving just the top leaves intact. Put that stem in a glass of water so the bottom 2 inches are submerged but the leaves are above the waterline. Leaves sitting in water rot. In a week to 10 days you'll see white roots starting to form from the nodes. They'll look like little threads at first, then get thicker and more substantial. Once those roots are an inch or so long, pot the cutting into soil. That's it. You just made a new basil plant for free from a stem you would have composted. Mint is even easier, and it's worth mentioning because mint is one of those herbs that grows with an almost alarming enthusiasm once it gets going. A small cutting in water will root within a week, and once you put it in soil, it spreads. Mint is genuinely hard to kill. Cilantro can regrow from the base if you cut it rather than pulling it up. But the more reliable method is letting it flower and go to seed, and then using those seeds to grow new plants. The seeds are the coriander spice you already buy. Let a cilantro plant bolt, collect the seeds, and you have an essentially infinite supply of future cilantro plants. Lemongrass. Okay, we need to talk about lemongrass. Most people buy it once for a Thai curry or a soup, use 2 or 3 stalks, and throw the rest away without thinking about it. The leftover stalks sit in the fridge for a week until you decide you're probably not making pad thai again this month, and out they go. You just threw away a perennial plant. Lemongrass propagates vegetatively. That means it regrows from a piece of itself, no seed needed. The base of a lemongrass stalk, if it still has the bulb end intact, is essentially a complete plant in a dormant state. Put that stalk in a glass of water with the bulb end submerged, and within 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes faster in warm weather, thin white roots will start to emerge from the base. Those roots look almost impossibly delicate for how robust the plant eventually becomes, but once you see them, pot the stalk up into soil and put it somewhere warm and bright. Lemongrass loves heat and sun, and it will grow with a kind of restless, urgent energy that feels almost tropical. The leaves get long, arching, fragrant. You can harvest the outer stalks once the plant is established, and the inner ones keep growing. One lemongrass plant, started from a supermarket stalk, can keep producing for a long time, sometimes years, if you keep it warm and well lit. The only condition that matters: the stalks you use need to be fresh. Lemongrass that's been sitting in the fridge for 3 weeks and has dried out at the base won't root. Buy it, use what you need, and put the rest in water that same day or the next. But here's what I want you to sit with for a moment, because this is the part of the video where I want to slow down slightly. We've talked about herbs and greens and the white end of a bunch of green onions. Useful things, easy things, things that feel like a minor upgrade to your existing habits. What I'm about to tell you is different.
What I'm about to tell you is that there are things in your kitchen right now that can give you plants so beautiful, so unexpected, so genuinely impressive that they stop being about food and start being about something else entirely. They're still useful, but they're also just wonderful. Ginger. A piece of ginger root, the kind you buy at any grocery store, is not just a root, it's a rhizome. It stores energy for future growth, and if you look closely at a fresh piece of ginger, you'll see small, slightly raised nodes on the surface, pale, almost whitish. Those are dormant buds. Each one of those buds is a potential new plant. You don't need much to start. A piece about the size of your thumb with at least one visible bud on it. Soak it in water overnight. This wakes up the dormant tissue. Then press it into slightly damp potting soil, bud facing up, about an inch below the surface. Put it somewhere warm. Not necessarily the brightest window, actually. Ginger prefers indirect light, especially when it's first getting started. In 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see a thin, bright green shoot pushing up through the soil. It looks almost exactly like a grass shoot at first. Then it starts to develop proper leaves. Long, narrow, intensely aromatic if you brush them with your finger. The plant grows slowly but steadily, and there's something almost meditative about watching it. After several months, 6 to 8, sometimes more, you can harvest the rhizome. Ease it out of the soil, take what you need, replant a piece with a new bud, and the cycle starts again. One purchased piece of ginger, started properly, can give you ginger almost indefinitely. Turmeric. If you can find fresh turmeric rhizomes at your grocery store, and more stores carry them, the process is identical to ginger. Same method, same patience required, same long-term reward. The plant itself is genuinely beautiful, broad, deep green leaves that grow from the center of the rhizome, tall and elegant. Some people grow turmeric purely for the ornamental value and the extraordinary smell of the fresh rhizome when they eventually harvest it. The bright orange interior of a fresh turmeric root is one of those colors that feels almost too vivid to be real. It dyes everything it touches, including your hands, your cutting board, your countertop, and potentially your enthusiasm for pale-colored kitchen linens. Just so you know, sweet potato. This one has been growing in American home kitchens for generations, and it deserves its reputation. Take a sweet potato and suspend it in a glass of water. Use toothpicks pushed into the sides to hold it. Bottom third submerged, top 2/3 in the air. Within 10 days to 2 weeks, it starts putting out vines. Long, trailing, brilliantly green vines with heart-shaped leaves that grow with visible enthusiasm.
By the end of the first month, the vines are draping themselves across the windowsill, reaching toward the light, moving the way living things move when they're genuinely thriving. It's one of those plants that makes a space feel inhabited. The vines are edible. The young leaves are used as greens in many cuisines. They taste mild and slightly sweet and work well stir-fried. But even if you never eat a single leaf, the plant itself is spectacular. It will trail down from a shelf, cascade across a windowsill, fill a space with movement and colour. The leaves that form closest to where the vine meets the water are the most tender and flavourful. Let the vine grow, harvest the young growth, and the plant keeps producing. Avocado. I'm going to be honest with you about the avocado because there's a version of this information online that sets people up for disappointment. Yes, you can grow an avocado tree from the pit. Yes, it's relatively easy to get it started. No, it will almost certainly not produce avocados in your kitchen, or possibly ever if you're growing it in a pot indoors. Avocado trees take years, sometimes a decade or more, to fruit. They need specific conditions, and the tree you grow from a supermarket pit is a genetic seedling that bears no reliable relationship to the avocado you bought. That said, the plant is extraordinary. Here's how to start it. Clean the pit, removing any avocado flesh still attached. Find the slightly flatter end, that's the bottom, where the roots will emerge. Stick 3 or 4 toothpicks around the middle of the pit, equidistant from each other, so you can balance it on the rim of a glass with the flat end down. The bottom inch of the pit should be in water. The top stays in the air. If you have pets, keep this one out of reach. Avocado pits are toxic to dogs, cats and birds. Put it somewhere warm, bright but not direct harsh sun. Now wait. This is where most people give up because the avocado takes longer than anything else in this video. 4 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer. There will be long stretches where nothing seems to happen. Then one day you'll notice the pit has cracked. A root has been growing downward through the water, and from the top a shoot is beginning to push up through the crack. Once that shoot appears, the growth accelerates. The stem gets taller. The first leaves unfurl. It's genuinely one of the more dramatic things you can watch happen in your kitchen. Keep the water fresh. Once the stem reaches about 6 inches tall and you have a few sets of leaves, pot it into soil. From there, treat it like a houseplant. It will grow into a real tree, not fast, but steadily. The leaves are glossy and beautiful. The whole plant has a kind of dignified presence. Will you ever eat an avocado from it? Almost certainly not. Does it matter? I'd argue no. Pineapple. And here we arrive at the one that makes people laugh a little when I first mention it, and then look genuinely thoughtful when they realise I'm serious. You can grow a pineapple plant from the leafy crown you usually twist off and throw away. The crown of a pineapple, the spiky rosette of leaves at the top, is not just decoration, it's a growing point. It contains the meristematic tissue and incipient roots that the plant needs to start establishing itself. The trick is that you need to get it into water before it dries out and those root nodes die. Twist the crown off rather than cutting it, which removes it more cleanly. Peel away the lowest ring or two of small leaves from the base, exposing about an inch of bare stem. Let it dry for a day or two, just sitting in open air. This actually helps prevent rot when you put it in water. Then put the bare stem in a glass of water, just enough to cover that inch of stem. And now, wait significantly longer than you've been waiting for anything else in this video. 2 to 4 weeks for roots to appear. They'll be thin, almost hair-like at first. Once you see roots of a reasonable length, pot the crown into well-draining soil, water it, and put it somewhere warm and bright. Pineapple plants are bromeliad relatives. They like it warm, bright, and with good drainage. The plant itself will grow slowly, 18 months to 2 years to get a mature rosette. And then, if you're patient and lucky and your conditions are right, the plant may flower and set fruit. A pineapple fruit, from your kitchen windowsill, from the part you are about to throw in the bin. Will it happen quickly? Not remotely. But the plant itself is beautiful, spiky, architectural, tropical. And if you do get a fruit, it will be one of the most satisfying things you've ever eaten. Leeks and fennel. Leeks regrow almost exactly like green onions, and the method is identical. Root end in water, wait, harvest the new green tops. The regrowth is slightly slower than with green onions, but the flavour is milder, and the yield, once it gets going, is generous. Fennel base is less well known, but it works surprisingly well. Cut the fennel bulb about an inch from the bottom, leaving the root end intact, and place it in shallow water. New fronds will begin to push up from the centre within about a week. The regrown fronds are feathery, fragrant, slightly sweet, perfect for salads, garnishes, fish dishes. The fennel essentially reconstitutes itself, and the new growth has a freshness and brightness that the outer parts of a bought fennel bulb sometimes lack. Garlic. A single garlic clove, planted just below the surface of moist soil, with the pointed end facing up, will grow. Within a week or two, a green shoot emerges. That shoot, called a garlic scape, is edible and delicious. It tastes like mild, fresh garlic, and it's used as a vegetable in its own right in many cuisines. If you let it grow through the season, and this works best if you have outdoor space or at minimum a deep pot, the clove will eventually form a new head of garlic underground. But even if you're only after the green shoots, a single forgotten garlic clove that started sprouting in your pantry is worth pushing into a small pot of soil rather than throwing away. The green shoots will keep growing, and you can trim them as you need them. One thing to know: garlic that's already sprouting on your counter is often past its prime for cooking, since the energy that was stored in the clove is now being redirected into the sprout. Which makes it even more logical to just plant it. Beets, carrots, and the root vegetable category. I want to be accurate about this one, because there's a version of it that circulates online which is a bit misleading. Find one thing from this list, and before you go to bed tonight, put it in a glass of water on your windowsill. That's the whole action, 30 seconds. And then, in 3 or 4 days, when you walk past it and see something green where there was only a stub before, remember that this was something you were going to throw away, something you paid for, something that was ready to keep giving. If you try this and want to tell me what you used, I read the comments, every single one. Tell me which one you started with and tell me how it went. And if you want to see what else your kitchen is quietly hiding, there's more where this came from.